Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're looking into the story of eXch, a crypto swapper that was, well, quite different from your usual exchanges.
Yeah, very different. Forget about the usual identity checks, KYC.
Right. eXch was all about instant anonymous swaps, which you can probably guess made it pretty popular for certain types of users.
Absolutely. And we're talking about some big names using it, unfortunately. It really hit the headlines because of its alleged connection to the Lazarus Group.
The North Korean state-backed hackers.
Exactly. They reportedly funneled some of that huge $1.4 billion sum they stole from Bybit through eXch.
Wow, okay, so that definitely put eXch under the microscope.
Oh, for sure. And it sparked this whole, major debate about privacy versus security in crypto. A really tricky balance.
Then it seemed like the story ended back in April. They announced they were closing down.
Mm-hmm. And then pretty quickly after, German authorities actually stepped in. They seized servers, grabbed about, 34 million in crypto?
Yeah, around 38 million US dollars, plus a huge amount of data, over 8 terabytes.
So case closed, right? That's what it looked like.
Well, that's what makes this interesting. The big question we're digging into is, despite this really public shutdown, are there signs eXch kind of kept operating, in the background?
Like a secret afterlife, yeah.
Exactly. So we've been looking at news reports, analysis from security firms like TRMLabs, TrueGuard.
Right, trying to piece together the full picture.
Our mission today is to understand the whole arc of eXch, how it started, why it seemingly fell, and this whole possibility of it continuing on somehow.
And what that tells us about the bigger challenge of tackling crypto crime,
Okay, so let's break down how eXch actually operated. What was the secret sauce that attracted all this illicit money?
Well, the number one thing was definitely the lack of KYC. Know your customer checks.
Right. No ID verification.
None. Unlike almost any legitimate exchange nowadays.
So that anonymity was, it was everything for certain users trying to stay off the radar.
And it was an instant swapper. What does that mean exactly? It just means it let you swap between different cryptocurrencies really quickly and, again, anonymously, like a fast, no-questions-asked conversion service.
Gotcha. And this wasn't some brand new thing, right? It had been around for a while.
That's right. You can trace it back to, 2014. There was a post on the Bitcoin Talk forum.
Oh, wow, that far back.
Yeah. Someone advertising swaps between Bitcoin, perfect money, and these things called BTC-e vouchers. Now, those payment methods, they often pop up in connection with, let's say, higher risk stuff.
Okay, so red flags even back then.
Potentially, yeah. And some investigators, like Fantasy over at Fairside Network, think they've linked the original Bitcoin wallet funding for eXch back to BTC-e itself.
And BTC-e was that platform shut down for money laundering, wasn't it?
The very same. So, yeah, the origins look a bit murky, even from the start.
Okay, so questionable roots, and then a more modern version appeared later.
Exactly. The eXch that really got attention, the sort of modernized one, kicked off around 2022. That's when its Ethereum hot wallet got funded.
A hot wallet being one connected to the internet for fast transactions.
Right. And funding that wallet seemed to mark a new, much more active phase. It quickly became a favorite tool for some notorious crypto drainers.
Drainers? Like who?
Groups like Monkey Drainer. They were one of the early big ones stealing from wallets. Pink Drainer, Inferno Drainer, names like that. Plus, various hackers exploiting DeFi platforms, they were using eXch too.
So it basically became a go-to laundry service for stolen crypto.
Yeah.
How did they make it so hard to trace the money, though?
A big part of it was their pooled liquidity system.
Pooled liquidity?
Yeah, instead of keeping everyone's crypto separate, they basically threw it all into big shared pots.
Okay.
So when you deposited, your coins went into the mix. When you withdrew, you got coins out of that same general mix. It wasn't necessarily the exact coins you put in.
Ah, I see. So it breaks the chain of custody, making it harder to follow specific stolen funds.
Precisely. It just blends everything together, creating this much more opaque environment. Very tricky for investigators.
Right. Okay, so we have this anonymous instant swapping service, potentially dubious origins, pooled funds, and then the massive Bybit hack happens. Lazarus Group connection. That must have been the turning point.
Absolutely. Bybit actually traced some of the stolen billions back to eXch. They reached out, asked for help tracing it further.
And eXch said,
nope. Flat out refused to cooperate.
Wow. Okay, that's bold.
Very bold and very public. That refusal just poured fuel on the fire, intensified all the scrutiny and that whole privacy versus security debate.
So the pressure just built and built.
Until, April 17th, eXch posts this announcement saying they're shutting down.
And then the authorities moved in.
Right. April 30th, German police seized the servers, the crypto, the data we mentioned earlier, made it look very final.
But, as we teased, maybe not completely final. This is where the afterlife idea comes in. What's the evidence they might have kept going?
Well, this is where firms like TRMLabs did some digging. They found signs suggesting, yeah, maybe some operations continued, just more.
Yeah.
Stealthily.
Like what kind of signs?
Okay, so when eXch first announced the shutdown, they also put up this post saying they didn't facilitate criminal funds. But then, just hours later, that post was deleted.
Huh. Strange.
TRMLabs thought that quick deletion might suggest maybe some internal disagreement, or maybe it was even a tactic, lower the public profile but keep something running underneath.
Interesting. A bit of smoke and mirrors, perhaps?
What about TrueGuard's findings? They also suggested continued activity.
Yes. Jeremiah O'Connor from TrueGuard reported something similar.
Yeah.
He said eXch seemed to quietly keep servicing some select partners using their API.
Their API, the application programming interface.
Right. It's like a backdoor connection for other software. So even with the public website down, these chosen partners could potentially still use eXch's swapping functions. Laundering could have continued, just not out in the open.
So serving a VIP list, basically.
Kind of, yeah. O'Connor mentioned it's actually not that unusual for these types of services to try and maintain links with key clients even after official takedowns. That's pretty audacious. And their whole international setup must have made a complete shutdown even harder for law enforcement, right?
Oh, definitely. O'Connor pointed this out, too. They played the jurisdiction game really well.
How so?
The domain was registered in the UK. They listed Switzerland as an admin location. Infrastructure hosted in France, and the servers seized were in Germany.
Wow, okay. Spread all over the place.
Exactly. That makes it incredibly tough for any single country's authorities to completely pull the plug. And TRMLabs added that even into early May, after the public site was gone, the back-end access, the API, still seemed to offer anonymization for threat actors.
So the core tech, the reason criminals liked it, might have still been functional, just hidden.
It seems plausible, yeah.
What about the future, then? Could eXch just pop up again under a new name, rebrand?
That's the big unknown, isn't it? It's unclear if they'll fully kill the API access eventually, or if this is a step towards rebranding. They did mention partners having API access for a limited time.
Which sounds a bit open-ended.
It does. Doesn't exactly scream, we're gone forever.
Now, through all this, eXch had its own narrative, didn't they? They weren't exactly confessing.
Oh, not at all. They strongly denied laundering money for North Korea. In that shutdown message, they actually framed the whole thing as like a privacy project.
A privacy project.
Yeah, they said they were privacy advocates trying to restore balance in crypto. They really went after AML enforcement, called companies doing address risk scoring parasites.
Parasites. Wow.
Yeah, profiting from government fears, they said. And their final line was pretty defiant. Privacy is not a crime.
That really sums up the core conflict, doesn't it? Privacy versus preventing crime.
It absolutely does. It's the central tension here.
And it points to just how hard it is to regulate this space, even if you shut one platform down.
It's like whack-a-mole. Amit Levin, who used to investigate at Binance, made this point really clearly. Crypto makes it so easy for anyone, anywhere, to launch a service anonymously.
Right. No registration, no KYC, no clear company to go after.
Exactly. How do you enforce rules effectively then? It's a huge challenge.
And experts seem to agree that these crypto middlemen, they need the same kind of rules as banks.
Right? That's the argument, yeah. Gal Ered Cohen from S. Horowitz & Co. says if you're acting like a financial intermediary in crypto, you face similar risks as traditional finance, so you should have similar obligations.
Makes sense. The fact eXch operated for so long, moving so much money, it shows there are still gaps.
Big gaps.
So on one hand, taking down X feels like a win.
It is, yeah. Alex Katz, the CEO of Kerberos, called it a significant win, which it is. You remove a major tool.
What?
But, as Katz also warned, the bad actors don't just disappear, they just move. They find alternatives.
And X even pointed towards one, didn't they? THORChain.
They did mention THORChain in their farewell note. And we know THORChain was used in that Bybit hack, too, as a bridge to swap Ether into Bitcoin.
So the criminals were already using it.
Seems like it.
Yeah.
And reports suggest the ex-operators themselves might have used THORChain to try and cover their own tracks.
It's just a constant evolution, isn't it?
Right.
New tools, new platforms, and eXch itself kind of hinted at a possible return.
They did leave the door open a crack, yeah. Mentioning partners keeping API access, talking about a potential new management team, new liquidity pools. it suggests they might not be completely
The
finished.
scale we're talking about is huge. What was the total figure?
The reported total flow through eXch since it started, around $1.9 billion.
Billion.
Yeah. And the operators are suspected of commercial money laundering, running a criminal trading platform. The stakes are massive.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up.
Thanks.
So eXch's rise as this go-to no-KYC swapper for criminals got tied to huge hacks like Bybit and Lazarus Group.
Then faced a very public takedown by German authorities.
But evidence strongly suggests it might have continued operating in the shadows, using its API for select partners.
Right. And this whole saga just throws that tension between crypto privacy and security into really sharp relief. X literally argued privacy is not a crime,
While facilitating potentially billions in illicit funds, it really highlights the challenge for regulators trying to keep up, doesn't it? This global, fast-moving, often anonymous tech.
It's incredibly complex. How do you regulate effectively across borders when services can pop up and operate like this?
It leaves you wondering, really. With platforms like eXch proving so resilient and new decentralized tools emerging all the time, how do we find that balance, that line between protecting individual privacy and ensuring collective security in this crypto world?
That is the billion-dollar question, isn't it? Something we'll definitely keep watching.